the way that I tend to think about these things is more broadly about the whole audience, which may or may not include your ideal customers, or it doesn't include your customers, right? There are people adjacent, people in your niche who are interested in what you're doing or interested in the industry, people like reporters, analysts, VCs, maybe even people like other brands who share an audience with you, but may or may not be competitors. I tend to think about the whole audience in that way. So that's kind of one way I think about it. The other thing is when I think about the ideal customers, what also comes to mind is working quickly to figure out who are not your customers, right? Like you can, if you create a, B2B SaaS offering, right? It's easy to feel like, oh, all of my customers are, everybody in the HR space or everybody who's a, technical program manager, right? But what you'll probably learn quickly is that that's actually not the case, and that maybe your ideal customer is actually, small, medium businesses of like 100 to 900 people who fit a certain kind of profile. So maybe I would just kind of pause there and start with the figure out who is not your customer first.
I think one thing that comes to mind for me is timescales. So how is your ideal customer going to change over the life cycle of your business? For a very early stage startup, you might well be thinking, well, what are your immediate goals over the next 3, 6, 9 months? And what are the type of customers you need to fulfill those? It might not be revenue, it might be insights, it might be access to knowledge about a certain process. And so that'd be one thing I'd be beginning to think about as an early stage startup. Then just zooming out a little bit, we think of, we're targeting companies, but these companies are made up of individuals with certain behaviors and motivations and needs. Often in SaaS, we have a different economic buyer to an end user. I love starting with the end user. There has to be a real need. So tapping into that, really doing the user research to understand what are the ways that they're working, what are the challenges that they're facing as they're doing whatever their jobs that you're helping them with, and which parts of those problems that you can solve are going to create the most value. At the end of the day, we need to retain customers. So getting them through the door is just the first part, whether that's into a pilot or a trial. So we really need to understand those at a deeper level.
I've been seeing more of the clients that I work with, more SaaS and software companies, sending me, when they send me messaging and positioning and things like that, they're including more of this like above the line, below the line, which I feel like we've co-opted from like accounting and other things. But the above the line in the way that I've seen it defined often is more of that like economic buyer. They're putting cash out. They want to know how much cash is coming back in. Versus the below the line, which is very much the user. Like, how does this actually change my work? How does this change my life? Those are two different, we can call them personas. But I think a lot of times that gets conflated. I think that's true in a lot of SaaS and software companies, but we end up conflating it and we're like, all right, we need to have two different pieces of messaging in two different ways that we talk about these things. And I think what's been really refreshing is seeing the work that Amanda's done and that's come out of SparkToro around this idea of like audience personas. And having a better idea, instead of trying to define these people by like their personality and like what social media do they use and things like that, we kind of already know, right? If you're genuinely sitting around a table and nobody knows what social media your buyers use, we probably need to talk to more humans, right? Like not sit and talk to each other at a table. We should probably start talking to our customers. I know that sounds really easy. It's a really easy thing to say. I've been in big SaaS companies where customers are this like weird walled garden, and as a marketer or product person, you can't really talk to them too much. Or I've even heard from companies like, our customers don't like it when we contact them. Like, that's weird. And there's probably some things to figure out there. The only other thing that I would add here is just around the real reason this is important, I think at its core, is something called offer design. It's not talked about in SaaS and software because a lot of times it's just assumed the SaaS, the software tool, the app is the offer, right? Like that's the offer we're making. The problem is it's not, we're not really thinking about our customer. We could do challenges, we could do courses, we could help solve roadblocks, we can offer a community. We'd already talked about community a little bit. We can offer a community. We can offer guarantees that a lot of, like, I don't see any SaaS companies being like, hey, if you don't accomplish this within 30, 60, 90 days, we have this like really wild guarantee. And there's a lot of different guarantees you can do. But like you see this a lot in the info product world, which tends to kind of be a little scammy, but they're really good at it. And I think that SaaS companies could learn a lot there, and it relates directly to who your persona is and what we're offering them.